Everyone wants to get into Tesco, but nobody talks about what happens 6 months later. Getting in is one thing, but staying is a complete different game. And today I'm going to show you the one metric that determines which side of the line you end on. If you're new here, welcome. I'm Manon Galizzi, a food scientist and a flavor expert. And I spent over 10 years in the food industry, from working inside flavor supplier to helping food and drink brands launch their product like McVitie's. And in this podcast, I share everything I know to help food and drink founders build products that don't just get listed, they stay listed. Here's what happens with a lot of early stage food and drink founders. You're working extremely hard. You're doing markets, pop-ups, you're running ads, you're pitching to buyers. All of this energy is going into one thing: finding new customers, new stockists, and new sales. And on the surface, that looks like growth. The sales number go up, you get new listing, and you feel like you're moving forward. But underneath all of that, there is a question you may not be asking yourself. Are the people who bought your product last month coming back this month? And I had a client who is really a good example of this. Their sales were going fine. For years, they were thriving. So they thought there was no need to look at their repeat purchase rate. Then sales starting to decline. And it was only at that point that they actually look at the repeat purchase data. And what they found was that repeat purchase had been declining for a while. The problem wasn't their marketing or their distribution or their messaging, it was their product. They realized their taste profile wasn't strong enough compared to what their competitors were offering. So their customers, one by one, were just choosing their competitors over them. So by the time they noticed, they had a lot of catching up to do and a lot of pressure. And that's a food and drink founder trap, because repeat purchase is a leading indicator. I know I'm going to repeat myself a lot. It tells you what's coming before the sales figure do. If you wait for the sales to drop before you start paying attention, you're already behind. Because if your customers are coming back, you are not growing. You're just running very fast to stay in the same place. You're basically filling a bucket with a hole in it. This is extremely common, especially at the early stage when you're so focused on getting in front of new people that you forget to look what is happening behind you. Now, let's talk about math, but not too much, I promise. Bain and company published in the Harvard Business Review that it costs 5 times more to acquire a new customer than to keep an existing one. And this is one of the most replicating findings in marketing research. Think about what that means for your business. Every pound you're spending trying to find someone new to buy your food and drink product, you could be spending a fifth of that, keeping the customers you already have. And it gets better. Wharton Business School found that the probability of selling to an existing customer is somewhere between 60 to 70%. But the probability of selling to a brand new customer is between 5 to 20%. So your existing customers are 3 to 4 times more likely to buy from you again than the new person is to buy from you for the first time. And that's a huge difference. Because what it means is the customers you already have are generally your most valuable asset, and most food and drink founders don't treat them that way. Repeat customers also spend on average 67% more than new customers. So not only are they easier and cheaper to sell to, they spend more when they do. Okay, one more stat, because I think this is the most actionable. A first-time buyer of your food or drink product has roughly a 25% chance of buying again, which is not great. That's 1 in 4. But if you get them to second purchase, that probably jumps to 50%. Suddenly, you've gone from 1 into 4 to 1 into 2 just by getting them to buy twice. And what that tells you is the second purchase is a critical moment. If you get someone to come back once, you have fundamentally changed the relationship. You're no longer a brand they tried, you're a brand they trust. And the second purchase doesn't come from your ad spend. It comes from your product, from the experience, from whether it delivered what they expected. Does it make sense? Now, let's talk about what this means when you are in retailer, because this is where it really hits home. A lot of food or drink founders assume that once they got to the retail listing, the job is done. They've done the hardest bit. You've got the shelf space, now you just need to drip foothold, run promotions, and get people to pick it up. But we know from last week's episode, and if you haven't listened to it, I highly recommend it. What retailers are actually looking at is not just acquisition, it's repeat purchase rate. On the food and drink founders who worked on improving that metric, 63% said it was invaluable in helping them avoid being delisted. And Circana, one of the biggest retail data company, published research just this year saying, when presented to a retailer, a story built on high loyalty, strong repeat purchase rate, and increased basket value is far more persuasive than a simple sales speech. So think about it next time you're preparing for a buyer meeting. So what's the shift here? It's not about abandoning acquisitions, of course not. What I'm saying is most food and drink founders have the balance completely upside down. They pour everything into finding new people, and then they wonder why growth feels so hard. Why every month feels like starting from scratch, and why the sales numbers are compounding. The food and drink brands that win long-term, and this is backed by McKinsey research on the best performing consumer goods brands, are the ones focused on SKUs with 60 to 70% repeat purchase rate versus their category benchmark. That's the goal, and that's the number you are aiming for. Bain and company found that increasing customer retention by just 5%, which is not a massive shift, can increase profits by anywhere between 25 to 95%. And that compound effect is huge. Because when customers come back, they spend more. They tell others about your product and they become your advocates. And that word of mouth is the cheapest, most effective acquisition channel you will ever found. So the question to ask yourself is, where am I actually putting my resources? Am I spending most of my time and my money trying to find the next customer? Or am I investing in making sure that the customers I already have are so happy that they can't imagine buying anywhere else? When you put these two things in perspective, the answer becomes pretty obvious, isn't it? Now, if repeat purchase rate is the metric that matters, the next question is what actually drives it? We went really deep on this last week's episode, but the short answer is taste. It's not branding, packaging, convenience, health benefits, or price. It is always taste. So basically, if your food and drink product doesn't taste good enough for them, no amount of marketing spend is going to fix your repeat purchase rate. You're just spending money to accelerate the moment someone decides not to come back. Again, if you missed last week's episode, I will leave the link in the description. It's worth watching alongside this one. Right, here's your challenge for this week, and this one is simple, but I promise you it's going to be eye-opening. We are going to build on last week's challenge. So go and find your repeat purchase rate if you haven't done it already. If you're selling direct to consumers, look at how many of your customers from last month placed an order within 60 days. If you're in retail, ask your buyer or look at the data if you have access to it. And then, this is the key bit, compare that number to what you're spending every single month on acquiring new customers. Your ads, your activations, your market stores, your influencer campaign, add it all up. Then you put your repeat purchase rate and your monthly acquisition spend side by side. And that contrast will tell you more about the health of your business than any other metric. If you're spending thousands every month to find new customers, but your repeat purchase rate is sitting between 15 to 20%, you have a leaky bucket. And right now, you're just pouring more water in from the top. But that's your starting point. Know your numbers, and then we can start fixing it. Right, let's bring it all back together. Getting into retail is exciting, of course, and it's a real achievement, but it's not the finish line, because the real game starts after the listing. Acquisition matters, but retention is where the money is. And repeat purchase rate is the metric that tells you whether your product is actually earning its place on the shelf. The math is really clear. It costs 5 times more to find one new customer than keeping one. And the food and drink brands that understand that early on and act on it are the ones still on shelf years from now. So go on and find your numbers. And if you want to share it, drop it in the comments below. I really love to see where you're at, and we can even have a conversation about these numbers as well. If you find this useful, please give it a like and share it with a food and drink founder friend who need to hear this. And I will see you in the next episode. Bye!